everybody. Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield holding it down for us in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a great show for you guys coming up today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us that 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday at 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern right here, DraftKingsNetwork.com. Samsung TV Plus, Roku, the DraftKings YouTube channel, all that good stuff. Alec Pierce, wide receiver from the Indianapolis Colts, going to join us and answer the most important question on my mind at this juncture of the NFL season, which is how much of the all-black versus all-white NFL team conversation actually found its way into NFL locker rooms. Because, Dad, you know this. There is nothing that a college football or really a locker room in any form loves more than a hypothetical debate. Like when I got to Notre Dame, there was nothing people talked about more than whose high school team would have beaten someone else's high school team. Games that would never have to happen then,
never be
but
played.
Games that you could talk about forever.
Oh, without a doubt. Games that will never be played. I always love the one would a team in this era go against this great team in the 80s, who would win. And it's so much fun because it's perfect for sports shows, TV or radio, because it's like a philosophy class. There's no answer, right? Just provide an argument and you're in the game. That's all you have to do is to be able to provide bullet points. So, amazing what that with Mendenhall when he made that quote, said that tweet of how we were all wow, and then what it turned into. And that is classic locker room guys turning something that's a little controversial into something in their minds that would be fun, because they would have fun with it. They would have a ball with it in the locker room. So, that is pretty interesting.
I can see we used to have a whiteboard in the locker room at Notre Dame, and we would always use that at the beginning of the year when we'd be putting together our pregame song list. You'd go and you'd word cloud ideas up there, and then we'd go through and we'd whittle it down to the final list. I could see that whiteboard, and you see them like in the Steelers locker room. They used to put up the standings for the ping pong tournament. There was like a running ping pong tournament during the off season, and they would keep the standings on there. I can absolutely see that being one half done each way with both rosters being brainstormed for the all-black and the all-white team there. So we will,
without a doubt. And the discussions that would go along with it, without question. There'd be fun yelling and conversation. It would be pretty interesting. I'm excited to hear the answer.
Yeah, so we're very excited to talk to Alec about that. We got plenty more as we march toward the college football playoff this weekend. Michigan saying the thing again in a way that I cannot believe at this juncture they are still saying. But, Dad, we also are now, we're through the college football playoff semifinals. We're through all the debate that leads up to how teams get in there. And we're getting ready to go into that weekend that most closely mimics it for the NFL, where instead of talking about resumes and what you've done before, we're talking about playoff permutations. And you and I are both, we share a lot of genetic makeup. Can't stand the amount of permutations that start to come out here. It's Carniacki or whatever, the guy on NBC who does the political board there, he does a great job of visualizing it for me, who has a peanut brain. For the rest of it, I just treat it like aces at the blackjack table. Let me know where my money's going when it's all said and done here. That being said, Dad, we do walk into this weekend where now a lot of people in their specific teams are going to be dialed into the matrix that you have that has all of the play. Do you have that piece of paper in front of you? Show people what this looks like, making it to the playoffs for the YouTube audience.
And this is just the AFC. I got to get the NFC and print it up. So. It blows my mind, Mike. I'm doing the games with Ryan Radke, the Sunday night NFL games, and last week a week before, we started talking about some of these because these start coming out a few weeks ago, the ands and the ors and the ifs. And I told him, I said, you get past one line of this, and I said, Ryan, I'm going to just stop listening to you and not have an answer because I glaze over. What's going on now with this graph that we were talking about before the show of I think with Pittsburgh at least has 10 different ways to possibly make it when you break it all down. No. Let's just talk about just how this game is going to go, and then we'll let it all settle out. I loved math, but I loved simple math, okay? addition, subtraction, multiplication, when it was simple. And when we got to the more difficult math, where there was the theory involved and a little more involved in it, I didn't like it so much. And I hated, it was the one class that I thought, oh my God, I am in trouble with at Notre Dame, was business statistics. I mean, I walked into the first class of business statistics and thought it was hieroglyphics on the board. And it was one of those blackboards that could slide out. One board became 3 boards. And you walked in the first day and all 3 boards were filled all the way with a line. Filled. It looked like that. It looked like that. And I said, I'm going to hate this class, which I did. I hated that class. I got by the skin of my teeth on that class. But you know what? I don't have to know this. And for anybody that is watching and or going to listen to this, if you're expecting us to give you all the permutations, go somewhere else. I'll tell you that right now. I know you're not supposed to tell an audience to go somewhere else, but it ain't us. It's not happening. We would go numb. We would say something wrong, and we would trip all over ourselves more than we normally do.
100%. So along the way, we will, as it pertains to these matchups, give you the best that we can here. Dad, I know you mentioned the game you're calling with Ryan. You've got one of the juicier ones there with Buffalo and Miami.
Yes.
That is actually a first in some way, and as a score that appreciates a show that appreciates a good scoregami. I love a good first. I hope it's math related. Please tell us more.
It is not math related. It has nothing to do with the scoregami, which I hate when you bring up all the time. But as soon as this game starts and it becomes official, it will be the first for something in NFL history. We have had brothers play in the NFL, right? I had a brother that played in the NFL. Brothers have played in the NFL. This will be the first time in NFL history brothers are long snappers for opposing teams.
Oh, Jesus.
There you go.
Well, you told me this was going to be underwhelming, and you really delivered on that.
Yeah. Reed Ferguson for the Bills and Blake Ferguson for Miami. There you go. First in NFL history. How about that?
You know what? Coming off of the Rose Bowl, shame on me for poo-pooing the importance of long snappers, as we saw a botched extra point almost undermine the entire game. So congratulations to the Ferguson brothers for making that happen, while I may scoff at the notion of long snapper brothers. Sounds like a Tubi sitcom that you could throw up about NFL players. So someone get that in the works and we'll make that happen. Congratulations to you and Ryan getting to usher in and shepherd in what will, I'd imagine, be right up there with the Kelsey brothers being the first brothers to play each other in the Super Bowl. Dad, with that in mind...
You know what? Real quickly, I should probably say that I read that in the notes there, but I guess the way I read it, they were already that because they played against each other already.
Oh, so it's not even the thing you said is not even true.
The way I read it, it says Bills long snapper Reed Ferguson, Dolphins long snapper Blake Ferguson are the only brothers to be long snappers in NFL history. They already played this year.
Oh,
well, I see. So now I have to have Jimmy Kimmel add you to the lawsuit too.
What was an underwhelming thing in the first place, except for the Ferguson family? Kudos to the Ferguson family, because that is very cool, by the way, to have brothers in the NFL. Sorry I built that up maybe more than I should have.
You know what? I'm going to save you here as we pivot towards what we actually care about for this weekend. We said we're not going to give you all the playoff permutations, but we'll give you some, and we'll look ahead and do a little bit of 3 for Thursday, 3 questions that we have going into the weekend to get us started on Week 18. And, Dad, let's start off with this. You mentioned one of the most complicated ones is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have, I think, 10 different ways that they can wind up in the dance. But let's start off with this yes or no, Dad. The Steelers are going to beat a Ravens team resting Lamar Jackson and others on Saturday, and the Jags will beat the Titans early Sunday to force a Buffalo win-or-go-home situation on Sunday night. You guys are the nightcap, and you will have the results necessary to know if this is just Buffalo, who can beat Miami and win the division now at this point based on the way the season's gone and get in that way, but also be at a point where a team with the third best odds to win the Super Bowl right now, by many estimations, could also miss the postseason entirely.
It's absolutely amazing how this has worked out, where Buffalo could win the division or Buffalo could be out, Jacksonville could win the division or Jacksonville could be out of the playoffs. I mean, it really is. And this is one of the things that goes on now, and I've been a part of it as well, where you scoreboard watch, right? You control some of your destiny to a point. Like I had that last year. The last game I called last year was it was Detroit at Green Bay. The game before that was the game I mentioned, Mike, where you know how we like to go down on the field as analysts. You go down and you talk to people. It was a ghost field down there because everybody was in the locker room watching the previous game, which was Seattle, I believe. It was Seattle and somebody else. And Seattle, that game, the outcome of that game before the Green Bay game started, knocked Detroit out of the playoffs. So Detroit knew coming into that game, Sunday night game, they were out of the playoffs. And the Packers knew because of that, if they won, they were in the playoffs. 20-16 Detroit win later, they're both out of the playoffs. So even when you're playing for everything and the other team's playing for nothing, that can happen. I just witnessed it last year. So it can certainly happen again here. The thing we don't know, Mike, is what other guys are going to sit for Baltimore, right? The most important one is the quarterback. I get it. But Tyler Huntley can come in and you know, he's been around a while. He could lead them to a win.
He made the Pro Bowl last year. Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler in 2022, obviously with a bunch of asterisks next to it in the way that accounted for that. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, Pro Bowl definitely a little different. But who else are they gonna? You know, think of a guy like a left tackle, Ronnie Stanley. Mike, you're a guy you know very well. It has been nicked up a lot. You know, do you rest a guy like that so you don't risk that? So I don't know who else they're going to sit in this one. And for the Steelers, they beat Seattle, they beat Cincinnati. Mason Rudolph has come in and done a nice job for them. They can absolutely pull this one off. I'll go ahead and say yes, Baltimore is locked into number one. So even the guys that are playing, we can be like, you know, let's kind of preseason it, make sure we get through this game without getting hurt. And Pittsburgh's playing for their playoff lives.
We do have to be careful because Baltimore is the team that wins all the preseason games. They major in winning games with backups that you're not supposed to care about all that much. And to your point about who else might not be out there, Dad, Baltimore had 5 starters that weren't practicing as of yesterday in Zay Flowers, their wide receiver, with a calf, Odell Beckham Jr., who's just old, Kevin Zeitler dealing with a quad, Kyle Hamilton, obviously, who missed the last game with the knee injury sustained in the prior game, and then Marlon Humphrey, also. So you'd imagine for a team that's been snake bitten by injury, including to their quarterback the last few years, that they're going to ignore the rest versus rust debate that erupted back in 2019 and probably try and get those guys healthy. I'm with you. I think the Steelers portion of it has a good option. Now, it'll be interesting what happens with them since Kenny Pickett came out and had to sort of refute reports that he was upset behind the scene or refused to be the backup for that game. If Kenny Pickett's healthy enough, Dad, do you think Pittsburgh puts him out there on the field at this point, even considering that Mason Rudolph's played pretty well?
No, I think they keep Mason Rudolph out there. Mason Rudolph's won the last couple of games, right? They need, again, a lot of permutations, but a win would certainly help them get into the playoffs. You're going to ride that hand right now. You know, if it were game 4 and you were in this situation, you may go back to Kenny Pickett, but not now. I don't think you do that now. So I think Rudolph stays out there. And then as far as Jacksonville and the Titans, of all the games we're talking about, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, obviously Baltimore's in. Pittsburgh trying to get in. Jacksonville could actually lose this game and be out of the playoffs. But they obviously can be in the playoffs as they're leading the division right now. So the only team out of all of this is Tennessee. They can't do anything but be spoilers right now. And like I said, I saw that last year with Detroit being spoilers of Green Bay. That said, I believe Trevor Lawrence is going to play and Christian Kirk is going to play. So I think Jacksonville wins this game.
Yeah, Christian Kirk finally being designated to return is pretty huge for them. I was talking to Richard Johnson, friend of the show, the other day, and noted Jags fan, about how the deterioration and the injuries around the rest of that receiver room with Calvin Ridley trying to lead the charge and maybe not being a fully throated number one really affected a lot of the offensive production there. And so with those guys back, and just Tennessee's ridden the roller coaster too, I get Vrabel's pissed off about the way the season's gone, but I'm not sure that's enough, especially with Jacksonville having all of this to play for. Let's stick with the AFC South, Jesse, and talk about CJ Stroud and some of the changes that we've seen from him over the season as they head into a pivotal game this weekend.
Yeah, 9-7 Texans, 9-7 Colts facing off on Saturday. And CJ Stroud, he was reflecting on how different this Texans team looks now than they did in week 2 when they lost to said Colts.
I think I've grown a lot in a lot of different places. I think our team has grown as a whole. I think we've put a multitude of games together to make our team really kind of stick like glue. Like we've come into a great situation of like now we're starting to pick up our chemistry better than ever. So it's like night and day from week 2 to now.
So guys, begs the question here. Is CJ Stroud telling the truth? Is he going to, lead the Texans to a win over the Colts to a playoff berth? What do we think?
Yeah, so, Dad, this one very interesting. Obviously, him and Will Anderson Jr. both had come back after missing some time due to injury. Their top 2 draft picks. CJ threw us for 213 and a touchdown. Will Anderson Jr. has sacks on back-to-back plays in that game to get back into that, and they get a pretty good win there. The Colts won 31-20 the last time these guys played in that Week 2 game. Dad, I'm having a tough time with this one. I probably lean Indianapolis, just given the fact that while Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud were out for a while, they also had their receiver room get destroyed by injury.
Right.
Laramie Tunsil had a groin injury in this last game. They just seem too beat up down the stretch, I think, to be able to go out there and operate the way we saw midseason.
I think I would agree with you. In that first win, yes, the Colts did win 31-20, but Anthony Richardson had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. And it's also the game he got hurt. So, he's obviously not going to be in this one. Gardner Minshew threw for a touchdown in this one. But I think I agree with you. I think Houston's nicked up a little too much right now. And I'll say Gardner Minshew leads this team in, again, a lot of different permeations here, but leads this team into the playoffs. I think the Colts get this win as well.
All right, so the Colts moving on here, which leads us to our last one, Dad. And this one, talk about a doomsday scenario. We've got Jesse, the NFC South breakdown here, the playoff scenario is terrifying and horrible, but could possibly end with 2 NFC South teams in the playoffs.
So try not to let your eyes glaze over during this one, guys. Okay, so... Guys, the Falcons will win the division with a win versus New Orleans plus a Tampa Bay loss. Now, New Orleans will win the division with a win in Atlanta and a Tampa Bay loss, or with a win and a Green Bay loss plus a Seattle loss. Tampa Bay wins the division with a win and a New Orleans loss.
Nope. Stop listening.
So basically, but if Green Bay... or if the Chicago Bears and the Arizona Cardinals both win, Dad, then all of a sudden we could be talking about multiple teams finding their way into the NFC South, which shouldn't be legal, shouldn't be allowed. For that reason, I'm going to say it's not going to happen, even though I could kind of see it with both of these teams right now, Dad. You look at the Bears, especially the last game against Atlanta. That was probably Justin Fields' best game that we've seen, or one of the most complete games that we've seen from him. So they're both absolutely capable. We talked about these quarterbacks giving themselves. Kyler going to be the quarterback for the Cardinals again next year, and Justin Fields going to be somebody's starter.
Yeah, he definitely. I agree with that. So Justin Fields is playing very, very well right now, which, again, we both think Chicago's still going to get rid of him, so the trade value may go up and help them. And Kyler Murray, you're right. Jonathan Gannon said he's my guy, whether, we believe that. But I tend to believe that, and they'll go another direction. I could absolutely see both of these teams pulling off victories the way they're playing right now.
well, I, for one, can't stomach that possibility. So we're going to say it's one or the other, and we find a way to normalcy here. I don't know who wins the NFC South, and to be honest, I don't really care because I don't imagine that they're going to stick around very long when it comes to the postseason. Coming up next, though, let's do some of the math that really matters to us. Let's talk about money math heading into Week 18. The sideline watching for incentive-laden celebrations. Next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Guys, around this time of year, it's really pretty fun for us as people who don't have a lot of money on the line to take a look at the incentives that some of these guys are playing for in Week 18. So let's talk about a couple notable ones here. So Baker Mayfield has the opportunity to earn $300K per category if he's in the top 10 in the following stats: passer rating, which he's ninth, passing touchdowns, passing yards, completion percentage, yards per attempt. So that could add up to $1.5 million for him. Odell Beckham Jr. has a potential $500K in incentives. He needs 5 more receptions for $250K, 2 touchdowns for $250K. Chris Jones needs 0.5 sacks for a $1.25 million incentive, and Jordan Love is going to earn $500K if the Packers make the playoffs. So, guys, who is going to be hitting these incentives? What do we think? And then also, Senior, you said before we started that you had a story about incentives here, that you had some.
Oh, incentives live forever in contracts. And when I was in Philadelphia, and remember, and as I've always said, I played 9 years and had 11.5 sacks. So people call that awful. I call that consistent. Getting a little over 1 sack a year, I think is a consistent thing. Consistently awful yet. But I could play the run. I could get tackles. And so I had I forgot how much it was, maybe 50,000, maybe a little less than that. The incentives were a little less than at times, to lead the defensive line in tackles. So that was that. If I led in tackles, not sacks, but tackles. And it was between me and my buddy Clyde Simmons. I ended up with, after the game, when I looked in the box score of what they had, I had got enough. I had beaten Clyde by 2 tackles. But when I went to the team and the coaches break down the tape and how they had the tackles, I lost to Clyde. And I remember going to my D-line coach and I'm like, dude, I got, didn't say it at first. My line mates knew, of it. And I said, Dale, come on, man. I love my man. God rest his soul, Dale Hop. Love him. And I'm like, dude, man, I need a few tackles somewhere. Let's go through the tape, and didn't work. I felt like, I think 2 or 3 tackles behind Clyde. We were both in the 90s of tackles. And I ended up not getting the bonus. Who knows? Maybe the team didn't want me to have the bonus. I have no idea because that happens
that
as well.
Sounds like they colluded against you. Take the box score to the PA and have them fight in your behalf. That is absolutely 100% collusion by the team to try and keep from having to pay you your money.
Yeah, how much money was it?
Jesse, I think, it wasn't more than 50. Like I said, especially for me to have incentives in there, the player, I wasn't one of the top players where you could really add a lot to it with incentives, the way to bump up a salary. It was over 10 but under 50. But you know what it was? To me and my wife, a lot of money is what it was. And so that'll be interesting this weekend for guys that need catches or sacks. Do they play as much? Where are they in the playoff, kind of picture here? Because you look at some of the easiest ones. Chris Jones, a half a sack. So what you're doing on that D-line, and players know it. Players obviously know it. And what you're doing on that D-line is he moves around anyway. You're putting him in position as a D-lineman. Hey, line up here. We'll run the stunt for you. Let's do stunts. They'll be for you to be the guy that clears, to get in there. Everybody wants everybody to get those bonuses. So you'll work. The other D lineman will, not that Chris Jones needs a lot of work for a sack, but when you're going for a half sack, that all of a sudden becomes the hardest sack to get, right? So they'll work with him to try and get him that half sack.
I'm just saying, Chargers got nothing to play for. They got a few guys that have worked in there because of injury this year on that O-line that could be, making less money there. I feel like you got to try and buy somebody. Like, hey, listen, man, we're all just out here trying to get through this game. You look like you could use a little extra cash. You probably spent money on your family all throughout the holidays here. Figure out a money that's comfortable, because 1.25, you could part with a little bit of that in the name of getting there. This is just a worthwhile investment opportunity for Chris Jones to try and go and really take this brother-in-law into a whole new level right now. Get Stu Gatz out here, sports whisper this thing, Chris Jones, and buy one of the Chargers' offensive linemen.
So let me ask you: you were on the Chargers. Could you be bought? Would you give up a sack? Now, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world that Chris Jones got a sack on you, but as a player, so you would do that?
I'm just saying, I'd think about it. Like, you got to get your quarterback in on it. It's kind of like remember the Titans. Let him on through. Like, hey, this play, we're gonna let him on through. We're gonna make this palatable for everybody here. And go on with our merry way. Take the dive.
Oh, my gosh. Listen,
get Easton Stick on the action, too. Buy him.
Is part of this
Jadeveon Clowney's in the same position.
Is part of this how much people like you, though? Like, in the league, like, if people, know that you're playing for a $1.25 million incentive, is someone just going to be like, meh, if they like you? Here's
the thing, Jesse. Other teams, what Mike is talking about, it would rarely, if ever, happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, no,
I don't think the other team, getting involved. But your team knows it, yes. So a guy like Odell Beckham needs 5 catches. So you could do that, and you could tell if a team is cool with it, or you could tell if a team doesn't want a guy to get options. Because if you need a couple of hitch throws, man, those are completions. Get your 5 in, get your bonus, and move on. And I may believe they're all in such a good mood in Baltimore, the number 1 seed. Yeah, hell, let everybody hit their bonuses. Jadeveon Clowney, I said, is with Baltimore now. He already hit a sack incentive for $1 million. He needs a half a sack more to get another $750,000 players. And Jesse, that's what you do with older veterans who are on short contracts, and you sign them for less money, like a Baker Mayfield. You give them big money incentives to hit to make more money, and that's what you're seeing with some of these guys, obviously established players as well. But it always is interesting. Again, teammates know and teammates want players to get it. It's always interesting if the team will want it to happen, though.
I was going to say, because you'll see, like, guys get sat down at a certain point in the game when people think they're out of it, and what the coaching staff, who is the conduit for the organization in a lot of ways, can do there. Because you're right. I guarantee you, if the players have their say in this, every one of the first few plays is going to go to Odell. Like, I've had buddies that have been trying to hit receptions incentives, and it becomes a whole show for the rest of your teammates on the sideline, especially when that's the only thing you've got to focus on. Like, Baltimore's the perfect storm for this because all their higher level needs are taken care of right now, so they can focus on this stuff. We've also got, and I don't think we have time to get to the sound here, but we've got Sean McVay, Dad, playing Puka Nacua this weekend with a chance to, or not, excuse me, Puka Nacua's situation going into their game this weekend with some chances to break records.
Oh, I think this is. Oh.
Sorry, I botched that. I tried to signal to our staff that we didn't have time to go to that soundbite there. So, Puka Nacua giving him a chance to break the record. He's 4 catches and 29 yards shy of breaking the NFL rookie record for receptions and receiving yards here, Dad. Would you want him to get a chance to get that record?
Yes. You have to do that. Listen, they're in the playoffs. I get it. You're risking injury. I get it. Get it to him early. 4 catches for 29 yards is a blip for this guy in what he's done this year. Again, hitch passes, quick screens, whatever to him. Get the ball out to him. Get him those 4 catches and 29 yards. You're right there, and you got one shot to do it, right? You got 1 year to do it. You're only a rookie one time. So I would absolutely feed him the ball, protect him as much as you can, getting those old linemen out in front of him on the quick passes, and let him get that record. And then if you want, get him off the field, because you already see Stafford's not starting in that game.
Yep.
So they have the ability to sit some players. But I would absolutely get him the record.
I agree. Puka's been great. He deserves to have his name etched specifically and officially in the record books on all these fronts, because it's been that kind of season. It's been one that came out of nowhere at the beginning and now ends with Puka Nacua established as one of the real receiving threats in the NFL, and a reason why this Los Angeles Rams team is all of a sudden having sort of a rebirth under Sean McVay and Matt Stafford, and now has that chance to be the coveted team that nobody wants to see. Coming up next, we'll get set and look ahead at some other players trying to join those ranks and try and smash what Puka Nacua is doing next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. While it isn't really a surprise to anyone, Georgia tight end Brock Bowers made it official that he's going to be entering the 2024 NFL Draft, saying on his Instagram, "Words cannot describe how thankful I am for what these last 3 years has brought. It's been an unbelievable honor and privilege to play for this university. It has given me memories that will last a lifetime." So guys, I mean, he's sure to be a top pick in the draft, right? So how high do we think he could possibly go here?
I mean, if Bill Belichick was staying in New England, the Patriots sitting at the 3 spot right now taking Brock Bowers would be a hilarious troll and very on brand with what's gone on there. But, Dad, this is one of those things that's always, and tight ends specifically, I think are a lot like centers where based on need and based on what else a team already has, you could see those guys climb pretty high because it's incredibly important. And Brock Bowers specifically is such a uniquely gifted player that talent-wise, we all acknowledge he's probably a top 5 talent in this draft, but how high he goes is ultimately going to depend on a lot because this is a draft that is rich in the 2 greatest currencies that the first round can know: quarterback and offensive tackle. And those cornerstone franchise pieces are pretty hard to pass up on when you're up high in the draft.
And then you throw in their wide receiver, right? I mean, because he's a great receiving tight end, but you have great wide receivers as well, because you would think about taking him, you know, as a receiver, not a wide receiver, but as a receiver of the football high because of what he can do. He is a top 5 talent, Mike. There's no doubt about it. But you got to find that spot for him, right? And we know Chicago and Washington, right, and this is the draft right now, they're going quarterback. New England is sitting at 3, I believe, right now. Hunter Henry is there, but that shouldn't preclude you from trying to get two tight ends that sometimes you like to do. You have Arizona, but they have a kid in McBride who came in last year and has been doing well for them. The Giants have Waller, but they may go O-line. The Chargers have Everett, but probably want to go defense. Tennessee has Okonkwo. You know, maybe I think he was the second leading receiver on that team. You have the Jets, Atlanta, who has Pitts, and then Chicago with the 10th pick, but they have Cole Kmet. So you're right. It's finding a place for him, and that was the first 10 right now. So I think while I agree he is a top 5 talent, I think he's going to go after 10 and maybe in the teens. So I think it's between 10 and 20, depending on team needs, which, remember, Kyle Pitts was the highest tight end taker when he was taken number 4 by Atlanta. Brock Bowers is easily that good and could be taken that high, and I hope he is. But like you just said, Mike, that's a specific role in finding a spot for him.
If you look like, man, and again, so much is going to change between now and then. He is good enough, like, as an overall offensive weapon. Like, if you think about him that way and not just pigeonholing him into tight end, you could certainly justify that. But there are going to be so many teams that are quarterback needy, so many teams that are offensive line needy. I kind of look down, Dad, at 16 at the Bengals and go, all right, you might lose T. Higgins this offseason because you got to start paying people. Tight end's never been a spot where you've had a true game breaker there. And while you could justify O-line, you went defense in the first round last year. You overhauled a lot of positions on that side of the ball. Having Jamar Chase matched up with another guy from the SEC with that kind of pedigree at tight end, how that could potentially integrate to the offense would be very fascinating. But Dad, it's a guy who leaves college football as one of the best tight ends to play in recent memory. Certainly has all the hardware and accolades for it. I mean, hell, we all had to watch him win the Lombardi Award that usually goes to offensive or defensive linemen, almost given to a tight end. So a stellar career there for him in Georgia Bulldogs gear.
I actually think a place maybe like Denver, a place like New Orleans, possibly as well. And right now they're slotted in. New Orleans, I think, at 12 and Denver at 13. I think because of need and specificity, but again, as you said, he is, I mean, my God, you just don't think normal tight end with him. But we're past that in the league now anyway, you know, where these tight ends that come in, they're usually such great receiving tight ends that he could fit early on in this draft. But I do think it will probably be 10 or higher for him.
selfishly would love to see him wind up in like one of the Shanahan McVay trees just because of the way they tend to treat tight ends and use tight ends. Like it's fun to wonder and it's cool to hope. But Jesse, while we're in the Southeastern Conference, we're going to talk a lot about college football, obviously, in the upcoming days and weeks. But we see the pressure cooker that is the SEC speed up the process on a lot of things, and it appears we are watching that happen right now in real time at LSU for Brian Kelly.
Yeah, LSU cleaning house on defense, okay? Brian Kelly's fired Matt House, Kerry Cooks, Robert Steeples, and Jimmy Lindsey. So you can see here he made a statement just saying that they're not going to return to the coaching staff in 2024. He wants to thank everyone moving forward. We're going to continue working to build a championship caliber coaching staff in support of our mission to graduate champions. Guys, this cleaning of house coming after LSU ranked 108th in total defense and 81st in scoring this past year. So, I mean, you never root for somebody to lose their job, obviously, but it kind of seems like, people needed to go here.
Well, and like this was not, I think, easy by any stretch. Like some of these people, Kerry Cooks was on the staff at Notre Dame when I was there with Brian Kelly. Like those two have a relationship. These are people that he knows. But Dad, this is also what we've talked about and what we saw for years in the SEC West when it was run and governed by Nick Saban, which it still really is. After like a 1-year hiatus where LSU made it to Atlanta, but. We see all the time the standard in this conference, and we knew this for Brian Kelly going in, tends to force things to happen pretty quickly. And now already walking into year 3, it feels like put up or shut up time for Brian Kelly and this LSU staff. You went to Atlanta in year 1, you had a Heisman Trophy winner in year 2, and the conversation and the standard at LSU always is, understandably, because of the talent there, national championship. That is how they grade success, and that's what Brian Kelly came there to do.
Yeah, and he got that success early going the SEC title game right away, so the expectation is going to be there. And now you're adding other teams to the SEC to make it even a little more difficult as well. So you wonder, and he's not, I don't believe in any trouble at all, but he's another one of these coaches that signed one of these long contracts where at some point, if it's not hitting, at what point do you start looking around saying, all right, why did we do, these 9-10-year contracts, and it's not working out right now. We're in for a lot of money, though a lot of these schools have a lot of money. We talked about the Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher situation where, others are really supplying that money. But, yeah, the expectation out of the gate started out well, and he's an offensive-minded guy, and he had the Heisman Trophy winner and a very exciting offense. Now let's see. Now he has to develop another quarterback, and that's, let's be honest, it's something he struggled with doing at Notre Dame, right? Bringing in quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks, because quarterbacks, top players, want to obviously play in college, and then they want to go to the NFL. And if you don't see that position group excelling, and it didn't a lot of times at Notre Dame, and if now you see he has a Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels, but that wasn't one of his guys, right? That he brought in as a recruit. So let's see what he brings. Now he does have the portal as well, so the game has changed as far as that's concerned. Yeah. So he can obviously pop around and keep doing that, and let's see how he does that. But yeah, pressure already as a coach is difficult. Pressure in the SEC as a coach. And Brian, remember, he chose this. He chose to leave Notre Dame because the only thing missing in his resume is a national championship, and he felt he had a better shot at LSU than at Notre Dame. So we'll see. Early success, and he's trying to reach that level again, and now he loses, his Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. His defense was very bad, has to rebuild, but again, you could do it through free agency and the portal. So let's see where he goes.
Yeah, and also we'll be without their offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, who took the Notre Dame job this offseason too. So now you're replacing. The one thing I will say to that regard is I always said this during Brian's tenure in South Bend, the best coach shy of Nick Saban in terms of being able to weather constant turnover at the coordinators. Because remember, Notre Dame's D coordinators were leaving every year. Clark Lee, Mike Elko back in the day, on and on down the list of all these guys that went and got other jobs, and they maintained the standard. Brian Kelly understands how to set the table and how to create an environment that has at times been not coordinator agnostic, but able to maintain its identity through change, and that will now be the task for him at LSU.
to GoJo and Golic now as Michigan prepares to face Washington on Monday in the College Football National Championship. Wolverines players have been pushing back, against some obviously highly publicized sign stealing scandal allegations here, their involvement in said scandal, saying any possible NCAA penalties, including vacating wins, would not detract from their accomplishments this season. JJ McCarthy specifically said, "We did things the right way as players. It would be very unfortunate to not get recognized for all the hard work that we put in and everything we accomplished over this last year. Whatever happened with all the outside controversies, it's out of our control. And whatever the NCAA wants to do is out of our control. But we're going to appreciate the things we did control and accomplish." So guys, JJ McCarthy, all these players, they've got to be exhausted about talking about this all the time. There's no way around it. They're going to get asked these questions. But I guess from your opinion, looking at the situation, how tarnished would a title be if Michigan wins? Are people always going to be saying, yeah, well, they stole signs that year?
Look how much people in New England care about that.
Yeah.
It never matters. We talk about Spygate and Deflategate and all these different gates in New England, and Tom Brady just holds up a fistful of rings and they just point to a fat trophy case and you keep it moving. So no, it doesn't matter at all, which is why I am surprised, Dad, that these players are still giving it the time of day, because I get you're going to be asked. Over and over. And I figured that at this point, that would be the easy PR non-answers that would start to come up. But instead, you had J.J. McCarthy expounding on this. He talked about basically saying we were doing this in response to Ohio State. He said, I also feel like it's so unfortunate because there's probably, I don't want to say a crazy number, but I'd say a good number, 80% of the teams in college football steal signs. It's just a thing about football. It's been around, which we all said. But then he said we actually had to adapt in 2020 or 2019 when Ohio State was stealing our signs, which is legal, and they were doing it, and we had to get up to that level that they were at, and we had to make it an even playing field. Brother, no! You don't have to do this and make it sound like that you were all commiserate in this. And I get that's not what he meant, but Dad, this is the whole point of why you don't continue to talk about this. Everyone else is going to do it, but Michigan right now is so full of confidence because they've gone out there and they have backed up their end of the bargain. And the players on that team, I'm sure, because we all have sports brain and have had it before, have convinced themselves that they are the persecuted and that they are overcoming the adversity in this situation, and it has led to I would not have advised the statement from the young man, because now that is going to be even more fodder for people in the lead up to this in a way that is just not necessary at this juncture.
The one thing they want to keep bringing up, and they need to stop bringing up, is everybody steals signs. About 80% of teams, he says, in college football steal signs. Yes. And it is legal to steal signs. But you guys did it illegally, okay? There's a monster difference of somehow legally, as I said, you can steal signs. If you look at them and see them and pick them up, it is completely legal. And it sounds bad because you're saying stealing, and legal, and those two words don't usually go together. So if you want to find another word, we're interpreting their signs, right? And which is fine to do. You guys did it illegal. Not you, but your school, your Connorstown, whatever, whoever did it illegally. So stop with that comparison. You're right, Mike. Sometimes you just talk too much. Because I'm with you. The Patriots, Deflategate, and the sign stealing, they don't give a damn. They're wearing rings proudly. And if Michigan wins this game, we've already said it, wear the rings proudly. Don't give a damn what anybody else says about that. But man, just stop, or somebody get to him and say, guys, this is how you need to frame your answer. Short, sweet, and this way, right here. Because every time you say all the teams do it, no, they don't. No, they don't. A lot do it, but not the way you guys did it. Some do. You guys got caught. There is a monster difference. But as far as vacating, listen, you guys had all 12-year wins vacated, right? The year you went to the national championship. I forgot what it was even for. Was it an academic thing with a player? I don't even remember
what it was.
But it's ridiculous. Because I agree with him there. We know what we accomplished. And the same with you guys. You guys know. You guys went out and beat every single team in the regular season on your schedule. So whether they got vacated or not doesn't mean a damn thing. I think it's a stupid rule amongst the millions of stupid rules the NCAA has in all of this. So, no, it shouldn't affect them what they think of their season, and they should wear their rings if they get them and not vacated proudly if they do win them.
Ohio State was stealing our signs, which is legal, and they were doing it. We had to get up to the level that they were at, and we had to make it an even playing field. Is the college football player version of the old Rick James sketch on Chappelle's show, grinding my feet on Eddie Murphy's couch. I got a little more sense than that. Yeah, I remember grinding my feet on Eddie Murphy's couch. Much like we did for Marie Antoinette with Charlotte Wild the other day. That would be my dream, is that Rick James, J.J. McCarthy, because that was the speed that he kept in this quote here. But, Dad, as far as Michigan overall and what they represent and if this is an outlier or not, I do think it's interesting to consider what they represent overall right now in college football. I heard Kevin Clark on Dominique Foxworth's show the other day talking about this, and I've seen Ari Wasserman over at The Athletic write about it. What Michigan and Washington represent in the modern college football era when it comes to talent acquisition. This is what Kevin Clark talked about it meant for Michigan beating Alabama in terms of accumulating star power in the sport.
I think this is the first modern college football playoff. I think that we're going to look back on this and say this was the beginning of something. Because if you're familiar with 24/7 talent composite or blue chip ratio or whatever, Michigan and Washington should not be competing for a national championship. Michigan has 15 players who look like they're going to get drafted. So, like, we can't just be like, oh, well, what the miracle on ice? You know, oh my God, I can't believe they closed the gap on Alabama. They've closed the gap on talent. Now, Alabama has more 5-star recruits on its roster than the entire Big Ten. They had, perhaps, if you look at the recruiting patterns,
oh my God,
they had the most talented roster, basically by recruiting in the history of football. What we're seeing here is teams finding ways to bridge the talent gap. That means development, which I've always found to be overrated, but it means being a good coach team with an identity.
So, Dad, this is the idea of the blue chip ratio that he referenced there. Bud Elliott and 24/7 Sports have basically gone back and looked, and to win a national championships, college football teams need to have signed more 4- and 5-star recruits than 2- and 3-star recruits over the previous 4 recruiting classes. There's a certain percentage of your roster that has to be made up that way, and what we've seen ultimately gets you the national championship winners. You end up with about 16 teams every year in that range that have the talent composite to do it, and while Michigan is barely inside that, to his point, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, those teams are at the higher end. Washington, not in this list, would be breaking the wheel on this. So, Dad, do you think we're at a point right now where because of the changes in college football, that matters a little bit less than it used to?
Well, I mean, I did disagree with him when he said, though I think it has been muted a bit about developing talent, because there is something to developing talent, getting talent at your program and then not being able to develop it further. 4 or 5 star. Again, the star rating system in high schools can be a joke as well. So just to lean heavily on that sometimes can be ridiculous. But to develop, we see 2 and 3 stars who all of a sudden are great players going on to the NFL. They got developed, or they developed more as they were in college. But I do think there is a development part that is still important. But yes, it's free agency now, Mike. So now we go to 12-team playoffs, and it's free agency. Who can you bring in so you never really have a rebuilding year, but you have for the top teams, but a retooling year instead? I absolutely think that's where we are, and it's changed.
I actually disagree with Kevin on this point, in that this is like a moment that we're going to look back on, because I still think all this matters. You need a certain amount. It's like when we go in the combine and check your height, weight, and measurables, we're making sure you meet the baselines in order to play at this level. And that generally tends to be what the idea of the blue chip ratio is. I think this year is a bit of an outlier because of the experience we have of quarterbacks. When you've got guys like Michael Penix Jr., who have been around for 6 years and have that bevy of experience at that particular position, I think some of the specific bits of roster makeup, Florida State and Jordan Travis were similar in the effect that he had on that team that would also have been outside of that talent line. I think those things have created an environment that might not be easy to replicate going forward. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., my father, Mike Golic Sr., has left his post. He's going to make coffee right now in the middle of the show because he's deeply unprofessional. Put him on camera. He doesn't want to be on camera. That's my father's empty seat right now. Let everybody know he's vacating his job. Look at him go. Yep. Over there grabbing his coffee here, which is a good time, actually, because me and Jesse need to discuss something before we get to Joe Flacco and a little bit of age-related beauty as he gets ready to head into maybe leading the Browns to a Super Bowl at this point. I don't know. Jesse, we were all blown away this morning looking up. I'm a kind of reformed sneakerhead. I used to spend a lot of time in the drop scene back when it was not overrun and corrupted by bots. And I understand what it's like to wait in a line or to wait up for a specific time for a sneaker that's some weird collaboration that's trying to get everybody hot and bothered. I didn't know that this was going to be a thing. So Stanley, who makes the cups that have become very popular, especially among the TikTok crowd, Jesse's got a Stanley mug right there on her desk in the DraftKings studio. They released today a limited edition Starbucks cup at select Target locations. There are about 35 or 40 of these per location, and Target's opened early to sell these cups. They sold out almost instantly, and the cups are now reselling for over $200, it appears. Jesse, you own one of these Stanley cups here. Is it anywhere near worth what's going on right now?
Absolutely not. Okay, so here's the cup. It's a great design. It's quite large. The design's fantastic because it fits in your car cup holder, which is really nice. But, yes. And as you can see, I have a boring gray one because I don't care about the color of it. I mean, they sell cool colors, I guess, but it's like, it's just a cup. This is insane. These people, there's videos of them rushing into the Targets to get the cups. People are being trampled. Like, it is full Black Friday madness. People dashing inside to get these cups. Yeah, no, I fully don't understand it, and I think that if you waited in line at 4 a.m. to get a pink Stanley Cup, you should reevaluate your life. That's just.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question in the back of the room here. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What the hell are we doing? I mean, aren't there other cups that look exactly the same, that do exactly the same thing? Why? That have and I'm with you, Jesse. You need that bottom to be small enough to fit in your car cup holder, or it's a complete waste. Mm-hmm. But there are other cups out there. Stanley doesn't make the only cup that does this, right? So I'm trying to figure out why. I don't, and then to stand in line. Mike, you are a sneakerhead and you go online to get these things. Shift that now. Say in the 100 and whatever some pair of shoes you have, say you had to wait in line for at least 4 hours for any of those shoes. Would you?
Haven't you done that?
So I wouldn't, because I'm averse to lines and I don't care that much. But I understand, like, I was tangent to a culture that did a lot of this in the sneaker. And what I will say is, at least people buying sneakers can point to the fact. Now, a lot of people do them because they're hype beasts and they want to keep up with what's cool. And that's generally what drives all of this, right? This perception of cool, or this idea that status is associated with having this mug. That is what social media has done for this mug.
Seriously?
It's why the Stanley people have made so much money. Yes, I truly think at this point, it is the seeing this over and over again, repeated to you by people that you trust and see on social media, is this idea, oh, I have to have this thing, which is what happened with sneakers. But I can at least say at the core of that, sneaker buying used to be part of a culture. It used to be tied into things that actually had deep meaning to people and had connections. Like, this is a cup. This is a cup you drink water out of. It does not have any of those things. It does not have any of the same background. It is a total fabrication. It is total hype created to, I guess, make the Stanley people a bunch of money, which kudos to them for getting the bag. You only could talk me into this if you did it with the print of the Starbucks holiday cups. This Valentine's Day stuff does nothing for me, the pink cups of the heart, but if you gave it the print of the Starbucks holiday cup, now all of a sudden I might holler at you.
But Jesse, this can't be long lines, right? Because if they only have 30 or 40 of them, wouldn't you, if you went there to stand in line and you saw 50 people in line, why the hell would you stay in line? I mean,
because
if you know these stores only...
If you watch the video, people are not, the rules of society have gone out the window because
they're running in. I got you.
The doors open and they're all running in like Black Friday style.
Like Black Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. I get you now. And that's another dumb thing that the store, why would you create that mass hysteria? If you're in line, you're in line. You're number one. You're not. You're asking for trouble just opening doors for one specific item. We keep bringing up Black Friday. People are going in to shop for a ton of things then. But if they're going in for one thing, my God, make the line for that one thing. That's ridiculous. People are for that?
Do you see what's happening here, too? We have a guy in this video. Now videos are coming out. The debauchery is reaching new levels. This guy's jumping over the counter and stealing them, I guess. He found out they were reselling for over $200. He's jumping over the counter and grabbing a box of them. I don't know if
is that counter jump going to top the counter jump that we saw yesterday in the courtroom where someone that was on trial in Vegas tried to jump the stand? Because that was Troy Polamalu at the line of scrimmage. I'm glad the judge is okay, and we can only talk about this because the judge is okay. But that was the leap heard around the world yesterday. This Target Stanley Cup wanter is going to have to come way more correct than that because we've already got first team All-Pro in diving.
Yeah. It's just...
Yeah, that was... And he didn't try to clear the bench. He cleared it, that guy. And you're right. We're glad everybody's okay. Dude got over the top. But and listen,
he's not getting probation.
I'm not saying
now.
that my generation didn't have things that resold. And a lot of times you buy it to resell it. Hell, with you, Mike, with the Pokemon cards, early on the Beanie Babies, there's always something that was that collector's item that you wonder why, it was, then all of a sudden it's worth one of these that you bought for $39 is worth $10,000.
Wait, a Pokey
the
what?
Princess Diana Beanie Baby was supposed to pay for college. That was supposed to be the
Pokey
one.
What?
Yeah.
A Pokey what?
Pokemon.
You call it a Pokemon.
That's the card, right?
No, it's a Pokemon.
I said Pokemon, didn't I?
No, you said Pokemon.
Oh, that's my fault.
Pokemon.
That's it. Mock an old guy, Jesse. Mock an old guy. Really not. You feel good about yourself?
Yes,
mock an old man.
My parents do the same thing, and I just love it. It's like when people, I'm not going to say old people, when people not of my generation call it Chipotles. It gets me every time.
Chipotle.
No,
I'm done speaking with you, Jesse. Done.
You did it right. This is all insane and chaotic. This is the flashpoint for me that feels like, I'm the one that's getting old now. I'm the one that's being left behind because I look at this and I go, what the hell are these people all thinking? That being said, this exact kind of age discrepancy is what's going on inside one of the most successful locker rooms in the NFL right now. Jesse, as we're getting ready for the postseason here, Joe Flacco is probably trying to come to grips with a lot of the same stuff, especially as someone who shock dropped into this team in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL writers really outdid themselves with this storyline. It is just chef's kiss. He has a really good sense of humor about being the old guy. Again, he's 38 years old. He's not old for the earth, but he's definitely old for an NFL locker room. And he was talking about how it's felt lately to be thrust back into the locker room with a bunch of, 22 and 23-year-olds.
You can tell that people look at you, guys look at you a little bit differently just because of the fact that I've played, this is the 16th year that I've been in this league. And you can tell that guys look at you a little bit differently just because of that. I mean, I'm dealing with, I always say it, if I messed up in high school, I could be these kids' dads, it's like, so there is, there's something that, they probably do look at me a little bit differently just because of that. To get a sense of what kind of impact, who knows? I'm just being myself and trying to help them win games. And I think when you're yourself, that's the best chance you have to impact people. So hopefully I've had something.
Okay, so he's turning 39 on January 16th. So, yeah, he is. There's one other 38-year-old on the team, and then everybody else is, the oldest person is it's a super young team. The oldest person, it's mostly 23-year-olds, basically.
He talked about it, the line of demarcation. And he made the joke about if I messed up, I could have been one of these kids' dads. He's across that line of demarcation where I always joke. It's funny when your friend group starts trying to get pregnant on purpose instead of avoiding it at all costs.
Oh yeah,
and that's kind of where Joe Flacco has found himself in this conversation. Dad, we remember was it a primetime game against the Jets that they played over the holidays where we had those shots of Joe Flacco? It looked like falling asleep on the sideline.
Oh yeah,
because as my mom mom pointed out it was the first primetime game that he had played since coming back. Joe Flacco was up past his bedtime. Everybody saw it. It was so wonderful and endearing. So he come back and has played with the reckless abandon of a guy who knows he is just taking away from much needed sleep.
It's amazing now, too, where we've shifted in generation, even the younger generation as well. We're not afraid to admit we all go, you guys go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock. Nobody's like, no, I'm up till midnight. No, you're not. You go to bed early, whether you're in your 30s or like me in your 60s. And it was funny, him sitting on the bench looking like he was falling asleep for a night game. But you know what? I mean, from going to the actual of what he's doing in Cleveland. He's playing really well, but for a chaotic quarterback situation, remember, he's the fourth quarterback. What he is, Mike, is a steady hand, a reliable hand for that offense where Njoku has jumped up. He's made the Pro Bowl. Even when you lost Nick Chubb, the running game's still going. You have Amari Cooper on the outside. You have an incredible defense. And listen, you're not anywhere without that defense. So it's all working together, but the quarterback position wasn't. And he's come in and he's become a 38-year-old steady hand that can still produce.
I'll even go a step further. He's made plays. Like, he's not just going out there and handing the ball off and getting them through it. This guy's been hitting strikes downfield. He's been chucking darts out there at certain junctures for this team in a way that feels like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop constantly. And we saw that a bit in the 3-interception game he had that they ultimately still won. Yeah. And so it's just been amazing. And we're at the point now where he has done so well. Joe Flacco is getting to rest, as he probably very much loves in Week 18. The Browns announced Joe Flacco's going to sit. Jeff Driscoll's going to get the start for Cleveland against Cincinnati. P.J. Walker is going to be his backup there. And Dad, we're at that time of year now where we're going to start to have this conversation. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play for the Chargers. Right. Carson Wentz is going to start for the Rams. Sam Darnold's going to be in for Brock Purdy. Tyler Huntley for Lamar Jackson. Where have you fallen on the rest versus rust idea? A lot of this tends to come back to the Baltimore Ravens, who the last time that they were in this position and the last time they chose to rest starters came back out and promptly laid an egg in the postseason in a way that people were always going to read way too much in. So where are you at in terms of the process of making this decision for teams?
Well, I mean, it's twofold here. One involves two teams. The rest, everybody else is in the same boat of resting quarterbacks. You get a week off. And you're used to that with a bye week, right? But for number one seeds, in this case, San Francisco and Baltimore, you're talking about Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy having 2 weeks off, 2 weeks of inactivity. And you do then start to wonder rest versus rust. And you can, whatever you do, you can explain it to why it's an advantage to you. Just like if your bye week's in week 6 or week 13, when it happens, you'll explain why it's perfect for your team at that time, even though it may not be. That's what you'll say publicly. And that's what you'll do here. If you're resting Purdy, you know it's 2 weeks. Oh, he'll be fine. The rest is going to do him well. Lamar Jackson, the rest is going to do him well. The other ones, I don't think it matters, Mike. Like I said, it's a week. It's like another bye week, so I'm not really worried about that situation at all. Quite honestly, Mahomes is used to resting a couple of weeks, right? Because they've always been the number one seed, never had to travel anywhere. Now he only gets a week off, and they're going to have to go on the road. I mean, talk about what a difference for them. I don't mind this at all. I have no, in such a physical sport where you're nicked up, as I said, we're mentioning all quarterbacks here, but there are other players that should sit. Like, we'll pick Baltimore, Kyle Hamilton. Why would you put him on the field? Why would you put a Ronnie Stanley on the field? Anybody that's nicked, especially with a soft tissue injury, I wouldn't even chance it. I mean, you're playing for the Super Bowl. To be in the Super Bowl, you need to be as healthy as you can when you get to the playoffs. You got to be in the playoffs, and then you need to be as healthy as you can. So teams in a position now of being in the playoffs, now your job is to be as healthy as you can while you're in those playoffs.
The difference, I think, for Baltimore and the reason why perception-wise, if things were to go badly for them after the break, the way they did, it was the Tennessee Titans last time where, and John Harbaugh pointed this out, they moved the ball. They had over 500 yards of offense. They just couldn't get it in the end zone. But for Baltimore right now, Dad, it's not like they just clinched after what was a great season top to bottom. they're riding a 6-game win streak. They're playing by far their best football right now. Offensively, really, I think going back to the Rams, the win streak started against the Bengals. But the game against the Rams, where we saw Matthew Stafford and Lamar Jackson dueling in the fourth quarter, to me was where the ascension began, to where the MVP became a surefire, a foregone conclusion for Lamar Jackson. Do you worry at all about that easing back off a little bit? The fact that they were in such a great rhythm offensively, now dealing with this hiatus and having some difficulty on the other side because they've been streaking is the one caveat I would say to this becomes a little bit more difficult. And is there anything to having 19 some odd days without that?
And that's what it would be, like most likely 19 days. I would still go with the rest, Mike. I still would. But these are pros. They have to understand when they come back how they have to play. As Harbaugh mentioned, we did move the ball. We had this yardage. So I would, and I wouldn't even treat it like a preseason game. Go in and play a couple of series, and then I'll get you out. What the hell is that doing? If you do something like that. So I would disagree in just saying play a little bit and then pull them out. I'm all for being healthy. I mean, look at last year. They had to play without Lamar, and it was Huntley in the playoff game against Cincinnati, which I did. Now, Baltimore did well in that game. It was a 98 or 99-yard fumble return for a touchdown Cincinnati had on Huntley fumble. That helped them in that game. So I am all for it. I mean, they're on a good streak right now. They've won 6 in a row. And by the way, the next 2 teams that have won the most in a row, Buffalo at 4 in a row, and Cleveland. Cleveland has tied for the second best win streak behind Baltimore. I am still waiting for that AFC Championship possibility matchup there, which would be unbelievable. But I have no problem resting these guys and trying to build on the fact that you are professionals and we know how we have to prepare and get ready to play.
100%. And I think Lamar Jackson and the way he's grown, how much older he is now as a player versus that last playoff run, and his maturity at the helm of this, and the fact that you're right, injury has been the story and the thing that snake bit this Baltimore team during a lot of their runs towards the end of the season. Lamar Jackson not finishing the last 2 seasons. You take health, you get it in there, and you move on fully with it. Dad, one last one quick here. We're not going to play the sound, but Davante Adams threw his support yesterday behind Antonio Pierce to be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. What he represents is something I've heard Dominique Foxworth talk about forever, which is, hey, you don't have a specific side of the ball that you came up as some sort of wonderkin on, but you've got the leadership ability to go ahead and stand in front of a group of men and figure out how to motivate them in adverse situations. He changed the course of their season completely, Dad. Does it seem like that this is, and while they have to go through the process and they still have to go through all the required portions of the NFL hiring cycle, it certainly does seem like he's going to get this job there, and that the task is then going to become, how do you get the coordinators underneath him to give him a chance to succeed?
I agree. And we know Antonio Pierce was a linebacker. He's a defensive guy, without question. But known more in this situation, you're right, for how he corralled this team. Now, they were ripe to be corralled after the Josh McDaniels stuff, right, where there was just so much discourse and dislike that went on there that you thought it would be a positive experience. And listen, 4-4, I think it's pretty good. No, did we expect 8? No. I mean, they're just not. I sit there and say not talented enough. You have the leading rusher last year in Jacobs and one of the best receivers, if not the best, in Davante Adams. But you ended up starting a rookie quarterback in a lot of this, and Aiden O'Connell, not a guy who was a first rounder either, where you said, the reins are going to be his. They're trying to figure out who the quarterback is going to be. Because of the way he has been coaching for a while and helps lead this team, I hope he gets the job. I think he would deserve to have the chance with this team instead of bringing someone new in and now, again, bringing all new assistants in and changing, the type of offense and defense you run. I am all for bringing him back and seeing where you can build this team.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to go vibes-based, and we see this in college where the team loves the interim guy, and you go on this hot streak for a couple of games, and then you make that decision where you pull the interim tag off, and it all goes to hell. You're right, they have had some adversity. It hasn't all been perfect here, but he's still shown the leadership ability and the capabilities that I think should matter a lot more in the way that we talk about these head coaching jobs than traditionally ends up being the case.
to GoJo and Golic. So we talked about this earlier in the show. On Saturday, the Texans and Colts going to square off in a regular season finale, going to determine which team gets a playoff spot, blah, 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 lots of scenarios. Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce, he is ready, okay? He was a crucial part of the Colts' latest victory over the Raiders, and he stopped by to catch up with GoJo about a myriad of things, all kinds of things. His season, the Colts playoff push, the teams in the NFL that he feels he could make an impact on. It's not what you think. Let's hear it.
All right, very excited. Alec Pierce joining us now. Colts second-year wideout, proud Cincinnati Bearcat alum. Take some time coming off a big win for you guys this past weekend, Alex. So how are we feeling right now on what I guess is a Victory Tuesday at this point as of the recording here?
Yeah, we're feeling good. Moved right on to Houston. We got a quick turnaround here Saturday game, so just getting prepared, getting ready for that biggest game of the year.
And I want to get to that. You guys have a real win-in-your-in scenario. It's such a far cry from where you were last year as a rookie with this team and everything going on. But I'd be remiss as a journalist if I didn't ask you this question, Alec, coming off of some of the debate we've seen around the NFL world. After the Rashard Mendenhall tweet, did the concept of the all-white NFL team make its way into the locker room discussion for you guys in Indianapolis?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I've heard some things go around, and so I love that topic. It's pretty funny hearing people talk about the teams and who would win and whatnot. So it's all good stuff.
Do you believe you should be a starter on the all-white team in this wide receiver room?
I think there's not a lot of vertical threats at the white position, or white wide receiver position. So I think I definitely added an aspect to the team. So I think I'm definitely out there.
There we go. I was going to say, Alec Pierce is our deep threat. I like our odds here in that white wide receiver room. So, and you put that on full display this weekend, your longest touchdown pass as a pro, the 58-yarder. Take us through that, the play call on that one. Pivotal for you guys there, a great throw from Gardner. What was the idea going into that?
Yeah, it was a great play call. It's 3rd and 1. And we kind of knew 2 different looks they might give us. They might go post safety out there. Just, simple post by outside receiver with the tight end run a sail route concept. Hard play fake, play action. So it's, basically those 2 pie with just a running back out to the flat. But they told me all week, they said, hey, there's either going to be a high safety, and if there's a high safety, run your route, try and get your corner to go with you and take the safety, and then that sail's going to be open. But they said there's a look on film where they have no one high, and if they have no one high, you can kind of take it across the whole field. So I actually had a post route on there, but I ran it more like a deep cross or something, kind of ran across the field. And beautiful ball by Gardner. Was able to kind of throw through a little bit of context, a really impressive throw. Just good play call, really well executed, picked up all the blitz and stuff like that. So nicely done.
No, it was awesome to watch and really great insight from you on just what goes into making a play like that and how specific things that you guys see end up translating into a huge moment for you and your team. And it puts you guys in this position like we talked about where it's winning you're in against Houston. There's a bunch of different permutations of where you guys can end up seeding wise based on some other results. But in general for you, how different is the vibe around the building right now with those stakes in mind versus where you were this time last year on a team that ended up 4-12?
Oh, yeah, it's completely different. I mean, this is what everyone's goal is in the beginning of the year. You want to play meaningful football down the stretch. You want to be fighting for playoff spots. You want to have a chance to kind of extend your season. So this is just exactly what we were looking for in the off season. So the energy's up. We're ready to go. We're trying to have the best week of preparation, just to get ready.
And what's been the biggest change that's allowed you guys to get here in your mind?
It's a good question. I think, just as a team, kind of we step back and we reassess things, and I think we just got better with just taking it day by day and trying to get better in practice, and then just trying to all elevate our individual games and then work together as a team, and just trying we were in a ton of close games last year, just didn't finish them. So I think new coaching staff comes in, just change some things up, and just go from there.
What was that message? You mentioned Shane Steichen comes over fresh off of a trip to the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's an offensive-minded guy. So for you, especially in this wide receiver room, what was that change like? What was the biggest difference for you personally and how you approached the job with this new staff?
I think it was we had really defined roles this year. I think that was probably the biggest difference. I kind of know exactly what's expected of you. They laid it out for us. They said, this is what we want you to do, and this is how we're going to win. And you're going to do this to help us win in that way. So kind of think it just kind of clear cut defined like what they want us to do, what they need us to do, and just kind of went from there.
And what was that definition for you and your role, and how have you seen it play out this season?
Yeah, they for me, they said, they really wanted me to be a vertical threat, run a ton of deep balls. And then, I've been trying to step up this year as a blocker, kind of fill that void, block for a lot of like the underneath stuff. We run a lot of like RPO games, stuff like that, bubble screens. So yeah, I try to be my best in that too.
And so you've got that role going into the year, but as we know, you guys went into the season with one quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who is the top overall draft pick for you guys. And then unfortunately he's injured and Gardner Minshew steps in. What's it like navigating that change now with a quarterback that you knew there, has it been on the team certainly, but wasn't the starter going into the season?
Yeah, I think the transition went pretty well. I think, we had a ton of reps with him in OTAs, obviously, and then even during camp for the first few weeks, like they were rotating him and Anthony. So, I think the transition went pretty well. And it's just credit to him. Like he was always ready each week. He was doing a great job with Anthony, kind of like being a leader, getting him ready for the games too, in that sense. And I think that just all played into him. Like when he got the opportunity to come in, I think he was ready to go. He sees the moment. And yeah, he's a winner. He's a competitor. He's a guy that we trust him back there.
You guys trust him. We on the outside see a lot of the jorts and the RV stuff there. How much of that actually is in the day-to-day with Gardner Minshew?
Oh man, I don't know if I've seen any jorts so far this year. He might still be wearing shorts sometimes. It's cold outside, and yeah, he's a real chill guy. He's a cool guy. It's exactly kind of how like he is portrayed. Just very down-to-earth guy, and interesting guy too.
Interesting to say the least, sir. Jacksonville's very own showing out there. We mentioned, and you guys are just getting into the beginning of the week, but Houston, obviously a team you know very well in the division, going up against a team that you guys see multiple times here. What is the biggest challenge in going out and trying to get the job done with them?
I think it comes down to us. It just obviously they're going to know us, our personnel. They're going to know a lot of our plays. They've watched a lot of film on us. They've played us before. So it just comes down to us, really getting dialed in, ready to execute the plays perfectly because, like I said, they're going to have us well scouted. We're going to have them well scouted. So just it more so, I think, becomes on just your execution and trying to be the best you can be.
Well, it's critical, meaningful football down the stretch of the regular season. Like you said, it's exactly what you hope for when you sign up and when you get into this league here. And now it's exactly where you are. So congratulations, Alec, on all the success, man. Really excited to watch you guys continue this season. And best of luck. Hopefully we're talking playoffs soon for the Colts.
Yeah, thank you.
That smirk on his face was all I needed when I asked him about the all-white team debate to know that had absolutely taken over locker rooms across this country on that following day. And he's absolutely right. We lack a vertical threat. Alec Pierce, former high school volleyball player, by the way, perfectly suited to go run and jump and try and get us the rock.
Absolutely. That's red zone fade written all over it, no doubt about it. So, yeah, I would have loved to have a microphone in a lot of those locker rooms to hear what the discussions were then. But, what a game. What a game they get now with the permutations of getting into the playoffs here. So, as we mentioned earlier, they played the Texans, beat them 31-20 way back in week 2. But again, different players scoring different touchdowns that aren't there anymore. So we'll see how this one ends up.
Yeah, it sort of did the Kevin Stefanski light here. Shane Steichen in year 1 dealing with the quarterback they drafted in the top of the first round being injured and still having a chance for the playoff. Pretty impressive.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Wednesday night was a rough one for the Lakers. They were blown off their home court, 110-96, dropping their record to 17-18 on the season. So since winning the in-season tournament, the Lakers are 3-9. They've fallen to the number 10 spot in the Western Conference seedings. Things are not going the Lakers' way. Here is Anthony Davis in the aftermath.
They said too many turnovers, man. We had 10 in the first quarter. Our attention to detail is not good. It's a team who plays hard no matter who's playing, play the right way. And, we can't dig ourselves a hole. We didn't shoot it great at all. And, I think the biggest thing just us for defensively is just our attention to detail. It's not good, not high enough to win basketball games right now.
Guys, Anthony Davis led the Lakers with 29 points. Austin Reeves adding 24. LeBron only scored 12, his lowest total of the season. So what do we think? Should we hit the panic button here?
Probably not, because it's still the middle of the NBA season. This generally tended to be the time where, in years past, and for so long, January would kind of be the blow-up month where LeBron James would inevitably start sending some passive-aggressive messages, and they would trade a bunch of guys at the deadline and do all that. It does seem like we've sort of sunsetted that model for LeBron in recent years, just because he's not the player that he once was. He's still great, don't get me wrong, but we know we're not dealing with full-fledged LeBron James anymore. I believe he was coming off. He had been designated with a non-COVID illness, so still kind of working his way back from that. But it's kind of the same problem the Lakers have had, Dad. There's not a ton of three-point shooting on this team from what we've seen. Anthony Davis did play really well in this one. Like, he looked dominant out there. But besides that, there just wasn't a lot of other help to come by.
Listen, before the tournament, during the tournament, remember, because all the tournament games until the semis and the finals were regular season games anyway, so it's not like you were playing more. You played 2 extra here. They were hovering around the 9-10 line anyway, right? It's not like they were 2 or 3 in the conference and all of a sudden just turned belly up since the tournament was over. They're sitting there battling Golden State right now for the 10th slot, and that's right around where they've been. So it's not like they've been much better than where they are right now. And how much are we putting on 2 extra games? Again, I didn't play basketball. I played football. There were 16 games, now 17. And basketball, there's 82, and you're asking them, they're playing a couple extra during the season. So maybe you see something right out of the gate, like you saw the Pacers, who they played in the finals. They were like 1-4 in their first 5 games after, but now they've won 6 of their next 8. Now they have younger stars on that team that they're relying on, obviously, than the older players like LeBron and Anthony Davis. So I don't know how much I put this on the in-season tournament, saying, oh, man, we're going to get to the point now if nobody wants to win the par 3 at the Masters because you never win the Masters. So now nobody wants to win the in-season tournament because look what happens to the teams after. I don't think we're there. I don't think that's going to happen by any stretch. I just think this is a team that's where they are right now is where they've been through the year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we're not going to do anything like that. This is just a team that has a specific or a slimmer margin for victory because of the style they play. They're second to last in the NBA in terms of 3-point attempts, I believe on a per game basis. Like they they don't shoot a lot from three. They're not a great percentage team from three, and so you're always going to have to win tighter contested contests. And for a team that is still kind of figuring out its identity coming off of last year, which is a great run down the back stretch of the season, and trying to replicate that consistently, that's going to be more difficult. And we've always talked about it through the lens of LeBron James navigating the transition that was supposed to happen for him and Anthony Davis. I do think it's an interesting juncture to kind of look at, because I heard this come up on the other side in that game last night, and the broadcast crew was talking about Kevin Love, who plays for the Miami Heat, about how this guy who used to be a guy with a This Is SportsCenter commercial, he was a walking double-double. He was a part of so many great teams. And they said now his role keeps getting smaller and smaller, and they said he just keeps showing up, and he keeps finding a way to impact the game, and he keeps accepting that. And I heard this from Klay Thompson last night, who's also been dealing with a really down year for a Golden State Warriors team that's struggling. And we had seen some frustration with Klay Thompson in the media, and I thought this was really interesting. Klay Thompson talking about a conversation he had with Steve Kerr that kind of reframed the way that he thought about this.
Well, Steve and I had actually a great conversation yesterday, and that helped me relax a lot. Sometimes I forget just how successful and how lucky I've been to be a part of championship teams and all-star games and gold medals. When you want to get back to that level so badly, you can kind of get in your own way. And rather than forcing it, we had a conversation about just enjoying this last chapter of my career and how lucky I truly am to still be playing this game and do it at a high level and being a better mentor for these young guys, leading by example, and having my energy right every game. And he helped me realize that I do have negative energy, how that affects the team in a poor manner. So we had a great conversation that just helped me change my whole mindset.
And Dad, I think this is remarkable and sends a message on a couple levels. Number one, it's a good reminder that what LeBron James is doing is completely outside of its mind. No one should be that good for that long, based on the way that he should be physically atrophying. But on the other side is how difficult it is, a window into what it's like for a star athlete to all of a sudden have to take the ego hit when you are not on tape and not feeling like yourself anymore at this point in your career.
Listen, he's averaging under 20 points for the first time since the 2014-15 season. He's at under 17 points right now. And this, while I played a long time in the NFL, this is I can't really relate. I guess on some way I can, as someone who knows what your ability is and when that ability starts to go down. He was a superstar, and then it starts to go down. For me, it was I had the ability to play for a while in the NFL, and when that ability starts to go down, then I'm out of the NFL. To where the stars, when their ability comes down, they're still in the profession they're in, but they're not what they were. And that's got to be a hard pill to swallow when you're the man, and he and obviously Curry were the guys, right? And to be that, and for this goes for any guy that's the star, and when you play long enough, and he's 33 years old, and it starts to diminish, and the thing about it is physically you see it, but mentally it's tough to accept, right? Because athletes can be the truest of what's going on, because we live, as I said earlier, by the tape that we have to watch of ourselves, whether it's practice or a game, to say, okay, I can't do what I normally did. Physically, I see that, but mentally, you still have that. But you know what? Next time, I'll be what I was. Next time, I'll be what I was. You say that mentally, but then physically, it's just not there.
It's your relationship with the game at that point. Klay's relationship has been, I'm one of the Splash Brothers. I am vital to this team's success. And when I am playing well, we're winning championships. We're one of the dynasties right now. And you're right, for a guy that's a role player or a backup, that's your relationship with the game. You know I got these limited spots to impact that. You're used to that ebb and flow, and then it's trying to navigate life after that. Klay Thompson, it is a version of like ego death inside of his basketball career right now, where he is saying, hey, my relationship with the game and with this team has changed drastically. And that's why when they brought that up with Kevin Love on that broadcast, I kind of stopped and marinated with it for a second. That's an incredibly difficult thing from like a higher order need place to try and figure out for players that have to have egos to succeed. How do I corral it to still be a really good teammate, which is an important part of the job?
Huge, because I think sometimes we see great athletes and look at their physical attributes and like, oh my God, and forget about the mental side of it. And right there you saw it. And Clay is aware enough, and Steve Kerr, a good enough coach to be able to explain that situation and say, hey, this is where you are. And I know sometimes you don't like it, but you can negatively affect the team. And that's what it's about. It's about team. Steve Kerr was right. Klay Thompson bought in.
And I remember Mark Schlereth always told the story about how one time he was watching tape, the old NFL offensive lineman, saying, man, that guy stinks out there, and realizing, oh my God, that was him. And then everyone gets to make the decision. Do I want to try and figure out how to stick around, or am I going to be done once I am no longer the player I believe myself to be? All right, guys, time to finish off the show where we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories. Send you off into the rest of the day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on DraftKingsNetwork.com, the YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and more. Tell a friend. And if you can't get to it live and you miss some of our great guests like Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce, make sure you get us wherever you get your podcast or right here available on the YouTube channel as soon as we are done. Guys, let's get to this, that, and the third. I'm starting off with this. Thankfully, good news and safe news here. As Tyreek Hill and his family dealt with a fire at his home in Southwest Ranches in Florida. The fire department was called to his home around 1:50 p.m. in the afternoon. people were home, but everyone was evacuated safety. He left practice early to go home and be with his family. And Dad, it is a stark reminder that these guys have lives well away from the football field, and that there are things way more important. So we're certainly glad that everyone's all right.
Oh, I mean, certainly glad everybody is okay. And yeah, I mean, and that's something. Listen, you can sit there and explain it to fans that are watching, but they're going to, normally they turn on a game every Sunday and watch a guy play football, and that's it. They don't know him personally. But yeah, they all have lives. We all had lives. We had, wives or girlfriends or families, or even if you were single, you had family. With obviously your mom and then kids. You and Jay came along while I was still playing. So you deal with all of the regular things there. Now, of course, Tyreek Hill, a fire can devastate people from a property standpoint. He'll get it fixed. He has the money to take care of his family to go somewhere else. But there were people in the house. You can't replace people. So I mean that is just like everybody else. I know everybody says, well, athletes or entertainers different because you have the money to do all this. Money doesn't buy people's lives. So I mean that's a scary situation. I imagine he went flying out of that development or out of that facility where he was to get home. To make sure everybody was okay. What a scary moment that had to be, and that is, you're right, you said it, the most important thing, that everybody was okay. That's the line that sticks. Fire, damaged property, we know can be okay with all that. People were in the home. I mean, that's the line where you go, oh God. Did everybody get out? And as you mentioned, everybody did get out safely, because that's got to be terrifying if you hear that. And you had family members in the house.
I think that's like a recurring
Absolutely.
thing that I think about regularly is like, what would I do if there was a fire? Or what would I do if, like, when you have those like waking daydreams where you're like, what would my first action be? And you think about it all the time. And so it's scary that he had to go through something like that. But like you said, everybody's okay. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
My waking daydream is always the zombie apocalypse. So
I was
going to
say, was it fighting a bear or something? That's the guy one.
No, Jesse, dude always is talking about the apocalypse and the zombie apocalypse. And does he have enough weapons around the house to take care of him in close quarter, hand-to-hand combat?
You know what I'm doing if the zombie apocalypse hits? I'm shooting everybody I love and then myself.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You have no competitive desire?
No, I don't want to. Why would you want to live in the post-zombie apocalypse world? What is good about
competition?
No. I want my family to go peacefully. They'll have no idea it's coming, and then I'll join them.
I want winners.
Why? So
I want
people
who want to win.
Yeah. I don't want to live in the post-zombie apocalypse world where every day you wake up and it's just a constant adrenaline battle of, am I going to freaking die today? No, thank you.
Boy, Mike, you don't want Jesse in your foxhole. You'll end up with one in the back of the head.
Yeah, and you'll never see it coming.
I was going to say, Jesse's going to Old Yeller my ass.
Yeah, but guess what? You'll never see it coming. You'll just go to sleep, sweet baby. Go to sleep.
Goodbye, sweet summer child. Let's get away from the thought of Jesse ending me before the mushroom zombies do, and celebrate the Pro Bowl in the NFL, Jesse.
Yes.
We got people that are very good at football that are now being rewarded for it.
Yeah, Pro Bowl teams have been announced. Very exciting. Brock Purdy voted his first ever appearance. He got the most votes from fans, was named as the starting QB for the NFC, and he's one of 9 San Fran players to be named the most from any team in the NFL. Ravens, Cowboys each had 7 selections. You got Brock Purdy, like I said. You got Tua on the AFC side. Patriots with 0 Pro Bowlers for the first time since 2000.
I could say, speaking of other first times, it's the first time 2 starting quarterbacks are first-time picks since the 1999 season, with Tua Tagovailoa and Brock Purdy both making it. That's since Hall of Famers Peyton Manning and Kurt Warner were chosen back in 99. So, Dad, you know what? This is like a good moment, I think, to take stock, because we've had the most toxic Brock Purdy discussions imaginable on this site and on shows and everywhere else. This is right where he belongs. Like, Brock Purdy making the Pro Bowl, cool. The MVP conversation was always a little bit too far out over at skis for my liking, but this is exactly where he belongs. It's a great reward and a reminder this guy was the last pick in the draft, and making it to this point is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is, and he probably won't play in it because he'll be playing in the Super Bowl the way it looks right now. So we'll see. What's interesting is people keep saying, where's Josh Allen in the MVP conversation? He's not even on the Pro Bowl team. The starter is Tua. The backup is Lamar Jackson. And which surprised me. I thought Lamar might be the starter, but Tua is the starter. And we'll see it all change as people decline to go. And then there's always the question, do you like it being in Orlando now? Because it used to be in Hawaii forever. And my thought is it depends. If you have kids, then you don't mind Orlando because you can go ahead and get yourself a guide at Disney World, backdoor all the rides, and have a ball. Like when we were at ESPN doing our, when you were younger, ESPN the weekend, and me and your mom would take you 3 down there. And we'd get guides and get the backdoor rides. It was, oh, my God, you felt guilty jumping the lines, but that's what all these guys can do. If you're younger and single or not married, you'd sure as hell probably rather still be in Hawaii than Orlando, quite honestly.
Or Vegas like it was last year. Any of the number of permutations of this you'd probably take. But like you said, there's advantages to everything. Shout out to the 6 Notre Dame players that made it. Kyle Hamilton, Kyron Williams getting the nod. Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson, no surprise. Julian Love also there as well. And as David Hellman pointed out, Zach Martin on pace to finish this season with as many holding flags, 1 as Pro Bowl selections, which means the best stat in football for Zach's career in more Pro Bowls than holding penalties. Still holding strong. Still the only thing that we can count on. But now we got to get to the third because, Jesse, we've got controversy surrounding mayonnaise, which means we need to weigh in. And the Kelsey brothers have apparently popped off shots at my friends at the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Yeah, so Travis Kelce believes that there is a mayonnaise conspiracy afoot. Here's his take from the New Heights pod where he explains how we're being bamboozled.
Oh, my God. That's not thick. That's not a thick mayo. That's fake mayo.
So that's what I said. The viscosity of this is way too. That's watered down mayo.
What Jason said, yeah, that's not as
right.
That's not as.
All right, we don't need to revisit that sound. Real mayonnaise would have been way grosser.
That's yellow paint. That's not mayo.
Okay, so both brothers in on the conspiracy. First of all, I love that Jason was like the viscosity, and Travis was like, yeah, what he said, and then just made a weird noise.
Yes.
So their theory here is that it's not real mayonnaise. Obviously, Gojo, you're our mayonnaise expert. So what say you?
Yeah, this is people wandering into a domain as newcomers. I live here, so let me explain how the house works right now. Yes, it's watered down mayonnaise because if you remember in year one that I was a part of there, they went for the mayonnaise dump when Shane Beamer, the head coach of South Carolina, was there and almost knocked him out. Mayonnaise is incredibly heavy. To put enough mayonnaise in a thing to dump it on a coach at that height and the angles that you need puts them in danger. And so, yeah, you got to water it down for a little bit for TV. That's showbiz, baby. They're both entertainers. They should understand that at this point. So, yes, it is a little bit watered down, but make no mistake, Dad, that is sweet, rich Duke's mayonnaise at the heart of it all.
Yeah, I think Jason Kelce said it right when he said that's watered down. That was it right there. And then Travis started going, that's paint, it's not real, and his brother should have asked him to spell viscosity to see if he could do it. But obviously that didn't happen.
I couldn't do that.
So then they went down the road of it not even being mayonnaise. But I think Jason was right, and obviously you were there. It's watered down mayonnaise, but mayonnaise nonetheless.
I just spelled viscosity, and I did spell it right. So just want everyone to know that.
Travis definitely couldn't do that, but I can tell you what's definitely going to happen now. Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce, the Mayo Dumpers at next year's Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Boom.
What if I told you they were a mastermind and now you're mine? All right, thanks so much. Have a great one. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.